know about you, but I am not in the habit of asking new therapy clients about their relationship with money. Turns out this is something that financial therapists do routinely, and it yields so much valuable information about not just their relationship with their finances, but other aspects of life, including attachment, trauma, relational styles, and so much more. Additionally, financial therapists are on to us and the fact that many of us therapists are carrying our own trauma around money and have some hangups when it comes to the intersection between money and what we're doing professionally that's worth digging into. That's why I'm so excited on this episode of Love, Happiness, and Success for Therapists to be digging into all of this and exploring a fascinating professional niche with my guest, Jillian Knight. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist like me, but she specializes in financial therapy, in particular for women and couples. So, Jillian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, you have such a fascinating professional niche, and I think one that many therapists don't really even know about. I mean, I didn't even know that financial therapy was its own thing until a couple of years ago, but it's absolutely fascinating. And I guess maybe we could just start right there. I mean, for a therapist who has not yet learned about financial therapy as its own thing, how would you describe it? And in particular, how is it different from standard issue therapy?
Yeah, great question. So it came out of a recognition from financial advisors and therapists who sort of came together and realized that they could really benefit from collaborating with each other, where therapists, as we all know, are not trained in money or talking about it, and actually there's like a lot of barriers around, even like doing your own work around money is not really a thing that you do in grad school. Should be. And then the financial advisors having clients not follow through with the plan or getting really emotional and not knowing what to do with this, right? And so starting to recognize this overlap of money is not just this sort of logical process, that it's not about the numbers and the math all the time, right? Like you need to know your numbers and you need to do the math, and that's important, but there's so much that is under the surface around money that traditionally has just not been talked about. And that it's really, the focus is on your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and behaviors around money, less with some integration of the like practical financial aspects as well, depending on your sort of home discipline. So you can kind of come to financial therapy from a therapeutic background, or you can come to it from like a financial planning advisor background. And so obviously, like the financial advisors are going to do more of the investing, the planning aspect of money, with some of the like financial therapy, like understanding people's relationships with money, and some skills to work with their clients around feelings or not following through on the plan, things like that. Whereas therapists, we are coming in and we're sort of getting some of the financial aspect, but also there's growing research around the intersection of the two. And so it's really a young profession. It's really only formally been around for maybe 15 years as an association, and it's growing. Um, but like you said, most people don't actually know that it is a thing, and so that's part of my job, even, is to help people know that it's a thing and how it
Yeah.
can be helpful. And when most people learn like that it exists, they're like, oh wow, like that, I need that,
I
or
need that.
or I know someone who needs that. And so it's really about, in a lot of ways, I think of it as applying everything that I learned and the experience that I have as a marriage and family therapist to our relationship with money, like you would your relationship with a person or
Mm.
your relationship with food or anything else. It ends up, when you get down to it, it ends up often being more of a symbol or something that we sort of put our
Mm.
deeper needs, wants, desires on. And so there's so much there. Like, I'm still learning, and it's just, yeah, I'm excited to keep learning more and more. Like, everything I learn is just like really valuable.
Okay. Well, thank you so much just for giving us an overview. And I
Yeah.
personally think it's so fascinating. I don't know about you, Jillian, but like the deeper that I get into our field, just the space more broadly, the more and more respect and appreciation I have for colleagues like you who have identified and really carved out these very specialized skill sets. I think it is incredibly valuable. And in my experience as a clinical supervisor and somebody
Mhm.
who's in the role of trying to support the well being of a lot of therapists, I mean, in my practice, growing self, but also through this type of work, is that one of the primary pain points for therapists that I think contributes deeply to burnout is that they get into these situations where they're either doing work clinically that is not really a good fit for them, or they are attempting to help people with particular presenting issues that they don't really have a lot of specialized insight into. And so they kind of get in over their heads, so to speak. Their clients get stuck, clients get frustrated, therapists get frustrated. And it's really because how can we possibly know everything? And I think it just
Mhm.
must be acknowledged that in our training, we are all trained as general practitioners. I mean, right
Right.
when you get out of counseling school or marriage and family therapy, I mean, I think there's more specialization with that, but you really need to be able to, like, whatever walks into the office, be able to understand what's going on and at least have a rudimentary plan, or at least know enough that you need to refer, right?
Mhm.
But when it comes to things like somebody's relationship with money and how it is creating sometimes significant problems for them, there's a lot of
Mhm.
pain, anxiety around it, or how it is impacting their relationship.
Mhm.
Therapists, right out of the box, are not equipped to really be effective with people who
Mhm.
are dealing with this. And I think it takes what you have done, that commitment to being like, okay, here's a niche. I see this as a problem. Here's a population I want to serve and do it really
Mhm.
well. And that you invested the time and energy into doing that. I think it's just fascinating. And I'd love to ask you more over the course of our time together about what shifted for you in terms of what you see now as a therapist or
Mhm.
coach that you didn't see or understand before you went through this growth process, this professional growth process.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Like, specifically around financial therapy or just in
Yeah,
general? Yeah.
well, yeah, specifically around financial, like, okay, so for example, I
Mhm.
did a deep dive into a couple of things. For me, it was couples counseling to strengthen relationships and communication. So I did a deep dive into how do I help people with that. Heartbreak recovery is another
Mhm.
deep area of specialization for me, but
Mhm.
also coaching psychology and how I,
Mm.
as a therapist, understand and implement the practices of evidence based coaching psychology with non clinical clients. And because of that, I can work with a client and see things now because of that that I wasn't able to see prior to my
Mhm.
investing in those things like 10 years ago. I just
Yeah.
wouldn't have seen it. I wouldn't have known how to help those people.
Yes.
And you've done something similar with that financial therapy.
Yes.
So, what do you think you as a financial therapist sees and understands that a therapist who hasn't had that education or training might miss or not know how to help?
Yeah, so I have a couple thoughts.
Uh-huh.
I spent the first 9 years out of grad school being one of those therapists. I
Yeah,
tried
we all did.
a bunch of different settings.
Mm-hmm.
I felt disillusioned and
Mm.
not always very like competent. Being a therapist made me particularly anxious, and I
Yeah.
had to really do my own therapy around that.
Mm.
And I think that specializing in financial therapy has it's allowed me to develop a sense of like competence in this area, and the more that I can put more of my energy into this one, like learning more and more in this one area to set myself up to be an expert, right?
Mhm.
Where like I have worked in a lot of different settings where I know that those are not going to be my my areas of expertise.
Me too.
And there's all the baggage of being a therapist in places where you probably shouldn't have
Yeah.
been.
Okay, so I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I know I asked you one question about to share, but what you're saying right now is just so interesting, and I don't want to miss the opportunity
Sure.
because I think that this is another super important thing related to not just professional development for counselors and therapists, but like wellness in this profession and being
Mm,
able to have a long-term sustainable career in what can be an exceptionally challenging profession. And just what
mhm,
you're saying right now, I can totally resonate. Like having worked in environments or seeking to serve client populations that are not naturally a good fit for me,
mhm,
I wasn't doing a great job. It made me feel bad about my role. It made me wonder, be like, oh God, what did I do? Like getting into this.
mhm, yeah.
And I think that as therapists, we don't talk enough about this because I think it can turn into this black and white binary thing where either I'm a therapist and I do all these things, or I abandon this profession altogether and do something else. I go
Mhm,
into HR, whatever.
yeah.
But what you're talking about, I think is so incredibly important, which is how do we create a middle path that is based on deep self awareness and a
Mhm,
connection with a particular facet of what it is that we can do and really devoting yourself to that
mhm,
to be certainly more effective with these clients, but also like as a way of carving out a healthy space for yourself in this
mhm,
profession and not expecting that all those spaces would be healthy for you.
mhm,
Am I
yeah.
getting it right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
certainly what happened to me, but
I can
continue.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of people I talk to, so I know that we're not alone.
Yeah.
I worked in the only place I could get a job when I graduated, which was community mental health,
Right.
going into people's homes to do therapy,
Ugh.
like low income areas, and there's a lot that comes with that.
Oh, yeah.
Managing crises, like right out of grad school, completely like not really qualified to be doing that, but that's what's available.
Absolutely.
In
And it's
order
a dirty
to,
job. And
it
that's why I think they assign
is
it to early career
right.
clinicians who aren't going to say no.
It is, and
Yeah.
it's low paying. It's not,
Right.
and then from there, you might go into a group practice where they want you to
Mm-hmm.
be able to see all different kinds of people. That
Mm-hmm.
happened. I worked in a psych hospital doing intake, like assessments at one point,
Yeah.
which is like, talk about like you have
I've
to be a
been there.
special kind of person to do that. And then I really needed a job, and I worked in an eating disorder hospital when eating disorders are like you're an eating disorder like therapist or you're not, and I was not, and I was trying to make myself one, and it just didn't
Yeah.
work. And even trying to run my own practice, I actually had
Mm-hmm.
a practice that I tried to run myself, but I made all the mistakes that you make because we
It's
don't get
so hard.
the business information or
Mm-hmm.
support. So it's seeing every client that came to me and not setting great like boundaries around who I accepted or
Mm-hmm.
the issues that I worked with,
Yeah.
and that burnt me out. And I went and got a job um, in an insurance
Yeah.
company,
Yeah.
just like you had to have a license, but it was more administrative. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think I'd ever, honestly, I like told myself I'm never doing that again. I'm never
Oh my
gonna
gosh.
work with clients.
Jillian, thank you
Yeah,
so much for sharing your story. And I
sure.
just want like every therapist in the sound of our voices, like raise your hand if you're feeling seen right now. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what happens to us, this quiet pain and people who come into this profession with such good intentions and a heart to serve. And just by virtue of the systems that we get put into and incompatibility with the work that we're asked to do versus who we are and who we need, it creates this. And so you have this dark night of the soul, as so many people do. And we're like, I'm going to go get a job in insurance because I don't think I can do this anymore. Totally understandable.
Yeah.
I've talked to so many therapists who are like, I don't think I can do this anymore.
Yeah. And to really, I sort of did the whole, I did that. I explored what would it look like to work in HR and how can my skills be, applied in other professions.
Right.
And it was through my own personal finance journey that I started to think maybe I want to be a financial coach, because my husband and I had done a lot of work on our own finances. But after being a therapist, just the idea of talking about budgets and saving and very surface level financial topics that are important and people need that. There are great financial coaches that focus on those things. But being a therapist, and especially being someone trained to see beneath the surface of what's going on for people, I realized I don't think I can stay on the surface. And I had heard of this thing called financial therapy. So let me talk to people who are doing that, find out what it is that they actually do, and learn that I could apply what I know and continue learning to this topic of money. And I could help people at that intersection. Just made, it's sort of like that moment when things come together and you're like,
totally.
oh, this is exciting. I could really, I have my own work that I've done in this area now, and there's so many people who don't realize what's happening under the surface when it comes to money. So it was just sort of realizing that, and then also starting to see clients again and starting to put into practice the things that I didn't with my first practice, and noticing how I felt. Was I looking forward to these sessions? Was I dreading certain sessions? And allowing myself to further define who my ideal clients are, so that I feel, not, sometimes you're not excited all the time to do therapy, but most of the time, I look forward to the work that I'm doing now. And that was not the case in any other setting or situation that I was in.
Thank you so much for sharing this just authentic, vulnerable, but really inspiring story. And just to break this down for everybody who's listening. So, becoming a certified financial therapist may or may not be your path forward into career satisfaction. However, Jillian, what you just described is the playbook, paying attention to how you feel and doing that. I think self-awareness with humility around the fact that we can't actually do everything. Some situations are not in alignment with who we are, that's okay. Yep. You took a break, you gave yourself some space, and then you also gain clarity around what feels meaningful to you. What do you enjoy? Helping people get clear about their finances and develop a different relationship with money. That was in alignment with your value system and what felt meaningful and important. But then also seeing the strengths that you could bring to the table in that regard. And then that was that spark of excitement for you when you're like, this feels different.
Yeah.
But then going back into practice and continuing to pay attention to your emotional guidance system to course correct into a space of here's what I need to say no to, here's what I can say yes to in order to shape your reality in a situation that is genuinely good for you. And I'm sure equally as good for your clients, because when you're in a strong, healthy place, that's what you're bringing to the table for your people. Exactly. And so I just wanted to break that down, because we've talked about this on the show before, but the way you described it so clearly is that's the process that everybody needs to go through in order to craft a professional roadmap, a professional path So thank you.
You're welcome. I didn't realize I was
Yay.
doing that.
Well, that's what I hear in your
Yeah.
story. Anyway.
I will say, while
Mhm.
I was in it, it did not feel that good.
Oh,
Right?
does it
So
ever?
when
I
you're on the
know.
other side, you're like, oh, okay, well, there's a reason why I,
Mhm.
you know, experienced the things I did and
Yeah.
had to go through
Mhm.
what I went through
Yeah.
in a number of different ways to be
Ah,
in a place
I hear
to
you.
prioritize that, especially as like a recovering people pleaser who said yes to everyone and everything
Yeah.
and wanted people to be happy with me. And when
Mhm.
you're a therapist, sometimes people aren't happy with you, and
Yeah.
that's part of the work. Yeah.
It really is. Well, I can so relate. I had all of those elements in my own journey as well. So I just let's like I'm glad that we could make that clear for therapists who are listening. So when it comes to this niche, now that you are operating on the inside as somebody who has done this work,
Mm-hmm.
launched this new chapter, you have this different perspective, this different understanding, and a different focus on people's relationship with money or the impact that money adds to a relational dynamic in a
Mm-hmm.
couple or a family. What do you see and understand now by virtue of the specialized knowledge that as a off the rack therapist, you would not have seen, much less understood how to help people
Mm-hmm.
evolve in these areas?
Yep. So there's quite a few, but the main ones that come to mind are I had so because we don't really talk about it in grad school, and because just like as a society,
Mm.
money is sort of talked about in the mainstream as just like something you're good at or not. It's very like neck up.
Yeah.
It's not. It's very like logical. The idea that you would have a relationship with it is not something that would have ever crossed my mind at the time.
Mm.
Um, and the idea that like that you would like openly talk about it. And so I think sort of having been trained as a systemic therapist, I know now, after applying what I know about systems and especially like broader systems.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have yourself as an individual, but then you're also influenced by relational systems and community systems and society. And there's all these like influences that also sort of intersect with like our identities and how
Mm.
we move through the world. Those are things that I learned to apply to like other topics, right? Like how do all of those things lead to anxiety and depression, or like
Mm.
how does a family system like impact the people in the family system impact one another, right? And how it's not just problems within the individual but within the
Right.
system, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to now apply that to money is that I'm able to see like the relationship we have with money and how it's impacted by all of those things. That's not something that I would have even thought to consider.
Mm.
So how the combination of like how your family influenced your relationship with money, how the communities or different like cultures you come from, the social media and the public policies and everything is like when you think about it under capitalism and
Mm-hmm.
patriarchy, there are things that we have, there are ways that we have sort of been conditioned to think about
Yeah.
money that I would not have thought of at the time, right? So now I can see that like any sort of like your relationship with money, but then also your level of financial wellness,
Mm.
or financial stability or financial like wealth, there are factors that are not just you working hard enough and um, like it's there's so many systemic factors that
Mm.
contribute to your relationship with money and your financial situation, that there's this like narrative that is very like individualistic right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we get away from the individualistic sort of like, well, you just need to like learn to budget, or you just need to
Yeah.
save more, is a
Right.
very, one, it's outdated, but two, it very much puts the like responsibility on the individual as opposed to looking at the responsibility on the
Yeah.
system. And so being able to apply that, I would not have had that insight
No.
at the time to be able to see that. And then also some of the most surprising, not surprising, some of the like big aha moments that I've had becoming a financial therapist. One has been like I had heard of financial trauma, right? And I've heard of it
How interesting.
as like your like a traumatic experience directly related to money. And in my experience, it was always in the context of like interpersonal violence. So like financial,
Power and control
yeah.
stuff? Okay.
Yeah. So like financial dependence in a like domestic violence situation, and how
Mm-hmm.
that, if you, once you're able to get out of that, if you're able to get out of that situation, how that
Yeah.
impacts sort of how you relate to money. But that is like one small piece,
Mm-hmm.
where if you have experienced a recession, if you experienced a major job loss, if your family lost their home when you were a kid, these are all
Yeah.
things that can be sort of internalized as really distressing events that change the way that you relate to money in the future,
Absolutely.
which makes sense to me. The other thing that I learned is that any trauma that you experience has the potential to show up in the way that you relate to money.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. And
What?
yeah,
Tell me more.
yeah. So, and I give full credit to a program called the Trauma of Money, for it's a certification that I went through. But basically, so if you think about experiencing trauma of any kind, really. So say it's like abuse as a child that leads to you having a certain trauma response in relationships. That trauma response could show up in the way that you manage your money. So it could lead to you like overspending on other people to try to keep them around. Or it
Hmm.
could lead to you holding on to all your money out of fear that it's all going to go away because of how you were, because things were taken away from you as a child, or you
Right.
didn't get your needs met. Or it could be like the collective trauma of living under racism, living under
Mm-hmm.
capitalism, and like all those little things add up to money sort of being this thing that really triggers our nervous system,
Right.
and being able to access like being able to calm your nervous system around money was like this like novel concept to me,
Right.
but it makes complete sense when you think about it.
It really does.
Yeah.
So interesting because I think obviously any kind of trauma triggers needs for love and connection, but also security,
Mhm.
control, and that these emotional needs get manifested around that relationship with money. So you're almost, I don't want to say almost, you are using that facet of life. How
Mhm.
does this person orient themselves around their relationship with money to understand much deeper things about them?
Mhm.
That is fascinating.
Right?
But also, I think using it as a lens to see how, and again, I love the way that you are bringing, I mean, you talk like such a marriage or family therapist. I love it. But the systemic lens around the external forces from family, culture, larger society, and understanding how they're influencing someone. And I just want to highlight something that you said that to me was so profound is that I have seen this too. There can be this very moralistic orientation to what you're doing with money. And there's like a right way,
Mhm.
which is spending less than you make and doing a budget and making wise choices and all of this. And it's like good people do that and bad people don't, is sort of the meta
Mhm.
message. But really helping to take away all of this shame
Shame.
that I think people who haven't been able to do that for whatever reason, and helping them develop a much more compassionate and contextual self understanding that helps
Mhm.
them understand why. And I'm guessing in that also creates a much more effective roadmap
Mm-hmm.
to making positive changes in alignment with what they want,
Yeah.
not externally defined.
Yep. Spot
Is
on.
that
Spot
oh
on. And
cool?
that's a lot of the work, honestly,
Yeah,
is people generally have not, most
right.
people have not had a space where they experience someone being empathetic
Mm-hmm.
towards them and pointing out, uh, the ways in which all of their experiences have led to them relating to money in this way,
Mm-hmm.
which is not their, I don't know that I'm making up a statistic here, I'll admit, but it's like 20% is like personal responsibility in terms of
Mm-hmm.
your own actions that you take. Like there are things that if you want to set yourself up financially, there are things you
Yeah,
can do, but there's all this other stuff that's out of your control that's happening
right.
unconsciously
Yeah, like
that
the bottom of the iceberg.
yeah, and that part just gets that in most settings, especially
Yeah.
financial settings, we're not they're not talking about all that other stuff. So it
Mm.
always comes back to shame, really. It's
Yeah.
like where do you experience shame around money? And instead of we already have so much shame around money, instead of shame trying to shame ourselves into some kind of change, it's really like empathy, as we
Mm-hmm.
know, as therapists, goes a lot farther, empathy, self-compassion goes a
Yeah.
lot farther in helping someone like start to not feel so bad about themselves related to
Right.
money. And
Right.
then once you can address the deeper feelings and needs, that frees up their ability to be able to apply some of this sort of more practical personal finance like
Amazing.
strategies in alignment with what's important to
Mm-hmm.
them, not
Yeah.
with what's important to other people or what they think should be. We sort of
Right.
sort through all of that.
Wow. This is so cool. I have to tell you, just like as you're talking, Jillian, I'm scrolling through my mind and like just thinking about what a powerful, not just tool, but perspective, like lens this is. Because, like if I were to start with a new client, I would
Mhm.
have a bunch of things that I would check in about. I would ask about a trauma history as a marriage and family therapist. I would also be, trying to understand their family of origin,
Mhm.
their relationship with drugs and alcohol, certainly like how they're operating in the world. But I would never think to ask about their relationship with money. And if that door is closed, you're really missing so much about somebody, aren't you?
Yeah, it's a really, and a lot of times it can be a really rich opportunity
Yeah,
to, it's sort of a window right
right.
into this other like um, yeah, this other factor, this other aspect of
Hmm.
their lives that we don't often ask about as
No,
therapists. I never did until
I wouldn't think of it.
now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fascinating. Before I let you go, could we talk about just one other thing? I'm curious if you have
Mhm.
any insight into this because I think this can be such a thing for therapists. In my experience, many therapists, including myself, can have some stuff related to money, their relationship with money,
Mhm.
that can make it very difficult for them as professionals. And so I'm thinking that space between us and the clients who pay us money typically
Mhm.
for our time. And certainly that's more present in a solo private practice situation. But I think therapists, caring, ethical people who are very conscientious, and I have yet to meet a therapist who's like in this for the money. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not why people get into this profession. But oftentimes, though, can feel conflicted between this legitimate right and need to earn a living
Mhm.
that feels like they are being compensated, but feeling like it's so hard to communicate their value, ask for what they're worth, raise
Mhm.
prices, talk to clients about money, particularly if a client is not been good about paying them or getting them
Mhm.
into situations where there's just so much anxiety for therapists around the financial aspects of this profession.
Mhm.
Do you have any insight into that? Or have you talked to other therapists about how to manage some of this?
Yeah.
If you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So in some of a lot of my clients have been
Hmm.
therapists.
Oh,
And
interesting.
then so I've done like some coaching around sort of the practical aspects of money, but then some of these things come up in that
Hmm.
process, right? And I'd be the first one to admit that I was so money avoidant for the
I'm
first,
avoidant too. I
yeah.
can totally relate to
And
that.
therapists, it's
Totally.
like 70% of mental health professionals would be considered money avoidant, right? Like we
Really?
just don't want to talk about it. We put our head in the sand. And
Yeah.
a lot of times we go into this profession because we've had our own family situations that we want to work through,
A
right?
little bit.
So then we know we have our own issues that we've worked through.
Yeah.
But we might not have addressed the way that they show up in money yet. And then we have our training as therapists, which I hope it's getting better, but a lot of the messages I got and other people I talk to, it's like, you don't go into this field to make money.
Hmm.
And that really sticks with you.
Yeah.
And there can even be like, and that's the money stuff of the people teaching us in grad school. But you don't know that, right? And so you
Right.
take this message with you that like, I'm only going to be able to make a certain amount, or I can
Yeah.
only charge a certain amount, or I can only charge what I would be able to pay. There's
Yeah.
all this like conflict around, like internal conflict about like,
Totally.
I need to make it accessible. It makes me greedy if I ask for too much.
I'm being selfish and greedy.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
Or like my clients might get upset with me and I
Mm.
like they they would get if they're getting upset, that's their stuff, right? We as therapists, a lot of times we can recognize that, but when it comes to money, it feels very much like they're upset with
Right.
me because I asked to be paid for my services.
Yeah.
And so
Totally.
it's very it's a sticky place for most therapists to navigate. And I really had to do my own work on this too. One, I had to realize like this is what I need to make. Like I did the math, which is something we don't always do. I did the math. This is what I need to make. This is based on my capacity as a highly sensitive person.
Mm.
This is the number of clients I can handle seeing in a week while also like still being a good parent. And in order to do that, this is how much I need to charge. And so I have that in the back of my head. In conversations, instead of offering a discount right away and giving a discount no one asked for, I am
I've done that.
I'm haven't we all though? Like my fee is X, but if you need me to reduce it,
Yeah,
I can work with
accepted.
you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
totally. Oh my
totally.
gosh. Stop spying on me, Jillian.
And so I had to bite my lip just a little bit,
Yeah.
wait for them to respond, and then if we need to have a conversation about it, we have a conversation about it. But making it clear that like I specialize in this and this is
Yeah.
what you're going to get, and I'm confident in that because I have focused in on this niche. I know that I know what I'm talking about. I know that I
Hmm.
have gotten
Yeah.
clients through that process to a place where they want to be with money.
Hmm.
Uh, and I know how valuable that is. And so this is what it is, and not
Yeah.
apologizing for it. Even that conversation can give you some insight into that client's relationship with money, right? Like if the first thing they do is ask for a discount when you know that they have a good job with a good income, right? Like what is that about? Because there's also this idea of like sometimes you can't afford things and that's just how it is, right? You don't have
Right.
enough money. But there's other times where like you think that you can't afford something when really it's like you're just not prioritizing that thing.
Exactly.
And so maybe you were raised to always ask for a deal, or maybe
Mm.
you were like, you lived on less. And so you had to,
Yeah.
like, that had to be your first question. And that had to be the thing you were most concerned about. But if you're stuck in your own stuff around money and haven't worked through some of that, you're going to take that personally and not see it as that client's money stuff that could actually be like really like, rich clinical information.
Fascinating. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is so good, Jillian, because I totally hear what you're saying. I think a lot of therapists are willing to flex and not be confident in communicating their value, but also if somebody's like, well, I can't afford it, and maybe it's true, but
Mm-hmm.
also, I mean, I will never forget the time I had a client many years ago who asked for sliding scale rates, income based sliding scale rates. And I do have values around accessibility. When
Mm-hmm.
I was young, I went to a therapist who worked with me on a sliding scale basis. I was a waitress at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
I was so grateful for that. And so I've taken great pride in being able to bring that into my own practice. And that's a values based choice in a lot of ways. Like I do want to do that. And so there was this one client who asked for income based sliding scale rates. Like, okay. And we got into the work, and she was talking about all of the stress and anxiety she was experiencing related to the purchase of a ski condo, a vacation home,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And she had these different choices and what to do. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I will never forget that very instructive
Mm-hmm.
experience. And just to your point, like people pay for all kinds of things. It's what they value, it's what they prioritize. And if they value working with you, and if
Mm-hmm.
you are showing up as somebody of value who can help them solve real problems, they're going to pay for that too. And they
Mm-hmm.
should, because what you're bringing to the table is amazing and not an experience that they're going to get somewhere else. So
Right.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And I've heard that from
Mm-hmm.
many therapists. The sort of I mean, there's like resentment that comes up, right? Like
I felt
you
resentful.
can buy a ski, what is it? A
A ski condo.
ski condo,
Yeah.
but you need a sliding scale for therapy.
For
Like
me.
for
Yeah.
me.
I
Yeah.
was like, and you know what? I hate to say this, but I'm going to own it, my failure to set boundaries, my failure to be confident about my worth, my failure to make healthy choices about the clients that I accepted. Like, I want to own that,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that I would be nice or flexible or there for a client. The ultimate outcome for me with that is that it felt so bad for me. I felt taken advantage of, I felt angry, I felt resentful.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to think that that didn't impact the work that I was able to do with that client, because I really liked her. I cared about her. I felt invested. But like looking back, I wonder how my failure to set boundaries there ultimately impacted her experience if I wasn't able to be as fully emotionally present or compassionate as I might have been otherwise. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some deep dynamics here, Jillian.
Yeah. It's deep
Mm,
stuff.
it really is. Well, on that note, thank you just for going there with me, with us a little bit.
Sure.
And so I know that you do so many things professionally. So obviously, you are working with clients, seeking to serve individuals and couples around their individual or shared relationship with money. But you also do other things. I know you
Mm-hmm.
have public speaking things going on. And so I'm wondering if you could just share a little bit more about that and what you're up to, particularly if therapists listening to this are like, I want to hear more from that Jillian Knight. What are you up to?
Yeah, so I have my practice based in
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina. So I see clients virtually in North Carolina, individuals and couples. And then the sort of one of the exciting things that I'm doing right now is developing my public speaking skills to better articulate what I want to say about our relationship with money. And so I've done in the past couple years of doing financial therapy. I've had the opportunity to speak to different groups,
Mm.
some therapist groups, some groups of financial advisors, groups of women in the community, and those have been some of the like powerful experiences that I've been like, how can I do more of this?
Yeah.
Because it's something that we don't talk about, that I feel like I could make more of an impact speaking
Mm.
to larger groups of people
Mm-hmm.
than just the clients that come to me individually. So I am currently working on a keynote talk around this, and developing some workshops for like different groups to be able to go in and sort
Excellent.
of give them kind of the overview, right? But then also like some of the skills and tools that I work with
Super.
clients on.
Fantastic. Well, and
Yeah.
as you continue developing these, particularly for therapists, I hope you stay in touch with me and, of course, our community. But even I'd like to proactively invite you to come into Growing Self and do a
Oh,
training.
thanks.
Yes, we're an ACEP, continuing education training provider. So we often are doing internal trainings with clinicians on our team. And as you
Nice.
know, I'm expanding into more counselor education initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
including, preparing therapists to be successful in counseling psychology through formal
Mm-hmm.
certification. And I love any and all opportunities to educate therapists. And so I'm so glad that you came here today to educate us and really share your life experience. But let's do some workshops, Jillian. I'm
Yeah,
excited
let's
about
do
that.
it.
Good. And so if other therapists, including me, wanted to keep track of you, where would they go to what's Jillian up to? How do I
Mm-hmm.
sign up for one of her workshops or maybe
Yep.
invite her into my organization?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, so most of that information is going to be on my website. So it's Her Financial Therapy, herfinancialtherapy.com. I'm also somewhat active on Instagram at Her Financial Therapy and spend some of my time on LinkedIn as well. So you can kind of
Super.
connect with me in any of those places.
Okay. And Jillian Knight on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Okay. And her financial therapy elsewhere. Okay. Jillian, thank you so much for doing this with me today. This was great.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. Thank you again for having me, really.